People don't buy what is made. They follow the reason why it was made. There are statements that seem simple, yet they strike a chord and silence us when we encounter them. This is because they aren't just about business or leadership, they speak to how humans view the world and themselves. Many spend their lives searching for the right method, the right strategy, the right moment. But very few stop to ask, what truly began everything within us? That question isn't meant for others, but for the life force within ourselves. This book doesn't propose a formula for success. It doesn't offer a list of tips to stand out. It does just one thing: it invites people to return to the starting point. To return to the place where every action, every choice, every dream once had a pure reason. This reason is not fleeting, doesn't need proof, doesn't need external validation. It merely needs to be acknowledged from within. In a world that constantly encourages us to run fast, go far, and surpass others, the most important question is often the least asked. Why do I want to do this? If the reason is unclear, then no matter how much is achieved, it all remains empty. But if the reason is clear, then even if the path is slow, every step still carries weight. So, what truly guides people? Is it the goals set, or the feeling of belonging to something meaningful? Is it the results achieved, or the journey of becoming oneself? And what if one day, what you're pursuing suddenly isn't enough to keep you going? Do you dare to return and ask that first question as you listen to the stories in this book? Perhaps what touches us most deeply isn't the answer, but the courage to ask. Keep that question beside you, like a breath, then open your heart and listen silently. People still believe that with enough data, enough evidence, enough comparisons, every decision will automatically lead to the right choice. But the world doesn't operate so simply. Things that seem certain often carry a veil of misconception. When someone says they deeply understand what they're doing, sometimes they only grasp its surface. The inner essence, the silent driving force behind behavior, is entirely overlooked. In their attempts to persuade others, most organizations and individuals choose to present logical reasons, figures, incentives, promises. They believe if the offer is attractive enough, people will choose them. But such attraction is fragile and fleeting. It only creates immediate behavior, not built trust. For years, countless companies have competed using means like discounts, loyalty programs, freebies, or the fear of missing out. This is a mechanism commonly known as the carrot and stick approach. When they want others to buy a product, they dangle a reward. When they want others to avoid something, they present a threat. While this method can be directly effective, deep down, it turns the relationship between seller and buyer into a cold exchange, devoid of emotional roots, trust, or connection-only behavior triggered by immediate benefit. Consider the tech world. When a company launches a new product, everyone talks about capacity, processing speed, number of features. They believe that if the reasons are compelling enough, customers will follow. But one company defied this convention. Instead of describing what their products were, they first spoke about their beliefs. They asked, what is holding people back? What needs to change? They believed that people deserve to master technology, not be dictated by it. And then, almost by accident, they created beautiful, user-friendly, groundbreaking products. Their starting point wasn't what they made, but why they made it. This reversal is what made them profoundly different from the rest. That difference isn't superficial. It lies in the order of their beginning. Most people start with what they create. What do we do? A select few start with what they believe. What do we believe? When belief stands at the center, every subsequent action becomes seamless. Their words, products, internal culture, and how they present themselves to the world are all unified. But when belief is forgotten, everything becomes fragmented. Products might be good, strategies might be logical, but they lack a heartbeat at their core. Broadening this view, the relationship between an organization and people is not just a transaction, but an invisible circuit of connection built on a sense of resonance. People follow what feels right to them, not just what sounds logical. If only information is presented, people will consider it. But if belief is shared, people will commit. Belief is the starting point of all inspiration. This leads to a deeper realization. Repeated behaviors don't always stem from habit, but from a feeling of inherent rightness and belonging. People aren't loyal to a company, they are loyal to the values they find within that company. They don't connect with a product, they connect with the meaning that product allows them to express. When prices drop, they might stay, but when trust is lost, they leave. No matter how cheap the price, the world always operates with two types of leadership. One relies on coercion, manipulation, and enticement. The other relies on the clarity of purpose. The first type constantly requires new tactics to maintain influence. The second nourishes itself through the power of authenticity. Authenticity doesn't need embellishment, it only needs to be spoken at the right time. When we look at individuals with great inspiring abilities, we see that they are not always more talented, nor do they possess superior knowledge. What sets them apart is that they know why they do what they do, and they let that guide every step. Here, the story has only just begun. To fully grasp the power of starting with why, we must delve deeper into a core structure that governs all our behaviors. A structure that seems simple, but opens up an entirely different perspective on how people decide, choose, and commit. This structure is not found in the market, nor in strategic boardrooms. It resides within each person's way of thinking and feeling. It's time to look deeply into the internal structure of how humanity thinks and chooses. Every organization knows what it does. Some know asterisk how they do it, but very few clearly know why they started. The majority stop at actions and means without touching the fundamental cause. This creates a subtle disparity. Two organizations might offer the same product, but how people perceive them is entirely different. This difference doesn't come from design or advertising, but from the starting point of their thinking. There's a simple diagram to illustrate this: 3 concentric circles. The outermost circle is what we do, the tangible products, services, and achievements. The middle circle is asterisk how we do it, the methods, processes, and distinguishing characteristics. The innermost core, the deepest part, is the least spoken about: why we exist. This core circle is the heart of all inspiration because it touches something invisible yet always felt. When communication starts from the outside, from what's easiest to describe, it enters the listener's head, where logic weighs, compares, and bargains. But when communication starts from the center, from the asterisk why asterisk, it goes straight to where emotions reside, where people asterisk feel the rightness without needing explanation. That's the distinguishing factor. People don't buy what we make, they choose to follow asterisk why we make it. When a company says its products are better, faster, with more features, they're talking about the surface. But when they say they believe people deserve to break boundaries, deserve freedom of choice, and that they create technology to empower individuals, not control them, they are speaking from the core. And it is from this core that connection is formed. If that belief is genuine, every product they create will naturally bear its imprint. Consistency isn't forced, it's born from the root. This isn't just a theoretical way of thinking. It stems from how the human brain is structured. The outermost layer of the brain, which processes language and reasoning, corresponds to what we can describe with words. That's where information about features, value, and performance is received. But the deeper, inner part of the brain, where emotions, intuition, and a sense of belonging are formed, lacks the ability to articulate verbally. That's where human decisions are made before they can be rationalized. When someone says they made a choice because they felt it was right, they are actually reacting with the part of the brain that processes beliefs and identity. They then find reasons to rationalize that decision. This explains why sometimes we know something is logical but still don't want to do it, and also why sometimes we do something without being able to explain it, only able to say, "I believe it's right." Therefore, starting with why isn't just a communication strategy. It's the only way to speak directly to the part of the brain that decides behavior. When the asterisk why is unclear, choices become burdensome. When the asterisk why is clear, choices become natural. With a clear asterisk why asterisk, there's no need to persuade. With an unclear asterisk why, everything becomes an effort. This also explains why some movements can explode powerfully without vast resources. When a belief is articulated at the right time, it resonates with those who already carry that same feeling within themselves. They don't follow because someone told them to, they follow because they see themselves in it. This spread begins with a small group of people, most sensitive to that belief, those willing to take early risks, even when outcomes are uncertain. From them, the belief spreads outwards to those who need time to observe, and finally to the majority who only change when the new thing feels safe. This has nothing to do with being strong or weak, intelligent or incompetent. It only relates to whether the asterisk why is articulated or not. If what we share is merely benefit, people will consider it. If what we share is a common belief, people will voluntarily follow. But for that belief to reach others, it needs a corresponding form, a way to be expressed in real life. No matter how profound an idea, if it doesn't find a suitable form to manifest, it will fade, weaken, or be misunderstood. And that's when the next step appears: how a belief is transformed into something orderly and disciplined. A belief only gains meaning when it finds a form to become reality. It's not that everything naturally falls into place just because there's a profound reason. The reason is merely the beginning. For that reason not to fade, discipline in asterisk how, things are done, and consistency in what is created are essential. If the asterisk why is the heartbeat, the how is the breath, then the what is the visible form the world sees. These three layers must harmonize like concentric waves radiating from a single point. When the asterisk why is unclear, what is created becomes fragmented. When the asterisk why is clear but the how lacks discipline, actions will go astray. And when actions are inconsistent, trust will be lost. Loyalty is born from long-term consistency, not from a single burst of excitement. It's like tending to an underground spring. If neglected, the water is still there, but the flow will weaken and eventually vanish from the surface. Once, an individual captured the world's attention pursuing the dream of flight at the turn of the last century. He possessed strong finances, the backing of the scientific community, and media following his every move. He had every element people thought would guarantee success. Yet his aircraft failed. Meanwhile, a group of unknown individuals without resources or glory silently worked in a field of sand and wind. They did it because they believed that if humans could lift themselves off the ground, the world will change. That belief cultivated perseverance, allowing them to fail hundreds of times without despair. And it was they asterisk, not the initially celebrated person, who ushered in the new era of the skies. The dividing line between these two paths wasn't intelligence or luck, but the motivation at the core. One side wanted to win the race for recognition, the other did it because they believed it had asterisk to be done. If motivation is fame, when difficulties arise, willpower will dwindle. If motivation is belief, difficulties are merely a natural part of the journey. Belief transforms failure into a step forward. Without belief, failure becomes the end. But belief cannot exist alone in the tangible world. It needs to be expressed through concrete means. The how is precisely where belief is transformed into rules, principles, and operating habits. If the asterisk why asterisk speaks of purpose, the how asterisk speaks of the spirit that every action must maintain, and the what asterisk the results created must bear the imprint of that spirit. There's a simple test to verify this. If you look at what is created, can you discern the asterisk why behind it? If the asterisk why cannot be felt through actions and products, it means the inner and outer circles have become detached. In that case, no matter how strong the message, listeners will feel a vague misalignment. That feeling is hard to name, but anyone can recognize how inconsistency silently erodes trust. Conversely, when the asterisk why asterisk, how asterisk, and what flow as one, everything becomes natural. The message doesn't need to be forced, the product doesn't need to strive to impress others. Its mere presence is enough to create a connection, because humans instinctively sense authenticity. Authenticity is the language of the deep mind. This isn't easy to maintain, because over time, as success arrives, attention is easily drawn outwards. People start focusing on what they have rather than what made them start. At that point, the asterisk why becomes vague, obscured by a string of goals, expectations, and pressures. But the paradox here is that success itself is what most easily makes us lose sight of our starting point. Holding on to the asterisk why during failure requires patience. Holding on to the asterisk why during success requires courage. Therefore, for a belief to outlive its creators, it needs conscious preservation, not rigid conservation, but a return to the center when facing a crossroads. Each time a major choice emerges, the question to ask isn't whether it's beneficial, but whether it aligns with asterisk our why. When the asterisk why is upheld, the how asterisk still embodies the right spirit, and the what asterisk created bears its clear imprint, the belief will continue to spread not with a loud clamor, but silently, persistently, as deep as an underground spring. Belief is transmitted through consistency, and consistency is maintained by consciously starting from the center. That is the foundation upon which all sustainable inspiration can stand. Everything else is merely surface ripples. People don't follow a leader simply because that person has power or a loud voice. True followership only occurs when they feel safe in a shared belief. Not safe in the sense of avoiding danger, but safe in the sense that they recognize a place where they belong, where their values are not compromised, where what they believe is articulated more clearly and profoundly by someone else. When that happens, the connection needs no explanation. It is simply obvious. To create this, leaders don't need to be perfect. They just need to be clear about what they believe and live faithfully to it. When words and actions stem from the same source, people sense authenticity. And that authenticity invites. It doesn't pull, doesn't force, doesn't persuade. It's like a smoldering but steady flame that draws those seeking warmth instinctively closer. Deep connection doesn't begin by convincing others to agree. It begins by allowing others to see what they believe. When a belief is articulated with clarity, it becomes a silent invitation. Anyone who has ever carried the same feeling will recognize it immediately. No lengthy explanations are needed, no complex presentation skills. Those people will step forward themselves. They don't come for benefits, they come for a closeness of spirit. The appeal of an inspiring leader lies in their ability to make others feel they are stepping into something larger than themselves. When they listen, they aren't just hearing words, they hear themselves within those words. This makes actions voluntary. Voluntariness is the true power of followership. Coercion only creates temporary submission. Voluntariness creates lasting commitment. When a group of people gathers around a shared belief, what forms between them is not just a community, but a space of trust. In that space, people don't have to defend themselves against suspicious gazes. They don't need to appear smarter, stronger, or more independent than necessary. They are simply themselves. And this is what unleashes creative power, learning capacity, and collective resilience. What guides this connection is not reason. Reason only comes later. This connection begins at an invisible point, yet it is always present in every human interaction, the feeling of being understood. If they feel that the leader understands what they are searching for, they will believe that this journey is meaningful. And when the journey is meaningful, difficulties are no longer a reason to stop, but merely a part of the path. Leaders do not create followers by shouting slogans or issuing passionate calls. Shouting only creates an echo that dissipates into the air. What nurtures commitment is silent, persistent consistency. Consistency is the hallmark of true belief. When every action stems from the same origin, followers don't need to wonder if what they believe is sustainable. They feel the steadfastness in the very rhythm of the organization. But to achieve that consistency, leaders must dare to live what they believe, even when it yields no immediate benefits. This is the moment of truth, because the reality of belief only reveals itself when there's a price to pay, when easy benefits are foregone. Anyone can speak of ideals. But when faced with a choice between quick gain and loyalty to core values, leaders are forced to reveal themselves. Those choices are how they say, "I believe this not just with words, but with my entire life." And when others witness that, trust is strengthened not by explanations, but by living proof. Living proof is always more powerful than any declaration, because people learn by observation before they learn by reason. This is why a leader's power doesn't come from their position. It comes from their courage to stand where others only dare to look. They become a psychological anchor, not because they are taller, but because they are deeper, not because they know more, but because they know what they believe more clearly than anyone else. And when those conditions are met, a collective can transform into a movement. But a movement doesn't spread through noise. It spreads through natural resonance. When belief is articulated correctly, it will touch those who already carry the same vibrational frequency within them. They don't need anyone to explain why it's important. They just need to hear and recognize it. These are the first people to feel an impulse from deep within, not for personal gain, but because they see themselves in that belief. These people appear in every community, in every era. They are those capable of seeing possibility in something still incomplete. They don't wait for the world to acknowledge the new to believe in it. They believe because they feel, and they are the group that first speaks out, opening the door for the rest to enter. When something new is nascent, it is always fragile. If you try to appeal directly to the masses, it will be doubted, questioned, dissected to exhaustion. The majority do not change first. The majority only follow. Those sensitive to new beliefs are the courageous ones who bring it into the light, even without proof. It is during this stage that leaders must understand that not everyone is an audience to be persuaded, not everyone has to understand them. Trying to win universal consensus dilutes the belief. What needs to be done is to speak to those who truly hear. When they recognize that it belongs to them, they will carry it further than any persuasive campaign ever could. This explains why some movements erupt from unexpected places. A person standing on a porch on a quiet morning, speaking about the desire for people to look at each other with equal respect. No media campaign, no rousing slogans, just a deep, clear voice and an unwavering belief. And then thousands came. Not because they were directly called, but because they heard the words they had already wanted to speak for themselves. This happens when a belief transcends the individual and becomes a shared energy. This energy spreads through invisible connections between people. It doesn't need formal organization to propagate. It spreads through recognition. I see you, and I know we are seeking the same thing. But there is another group that appears later. This is a larger group, one that needs to observe before acting. They are not skeptical, they just need time to see evidence. They want to know if the new thing is truly sustainable, truly worth committing to. They observe actions, not words. And when they see that those who went before are unwavering, they will come. Not quickly, but surely. And finally comes the slowest to change group. This group is not wrong or bad, they are simply attached to the familiar. The world needs them to maintain stability. But precisely because of that stability, they only change when the rest have shown that the new path is neither threatening nor illusory. They are the final destination, not the starting point. This is the order of diffusion for all great things in human life. All sustainable change follows this order, starting with a few, spreading through those sensitive enough, and then reaching the majority. Trying to reverse that order only leads to disappointment. Leaders need to understand this so they don't mistake initial silence for failure. No response doesn't mean no one is listening. The resonance of belief sometimes spreads in silence before it rises into sound. The important thing is not to attract many people immediately. The important thing is to keep the flame stable enough for the first people to see it. They are the ones who will carry that flame further than any single person could. A lasting movement is one that knows how to wait, how to allow truly resonant individuals to appear. And when they come, they don't come to stand behind. They come to share the burden, walk together, and transmit. That's when belief is no longer one person's words. It becomes the shared rhythm of many hearts. When belief has spread to those sensitive enough to recognize it, the next step isn't to expand quickly, but to give the belief a form to live within. A belief without a mechanism for expression will wither. It needs corresponding action, supporting structure, and people who can translate the abstract into something tangible in life. That's when two seemingly opposing roles emerge, but in reality, they complement each other. The guardian of the why and the master of the how asterisk. The guardian of the why is the one who always returns to the center. They keep the initial flame from fading. They reiterate the core message even when everyone has become accustomed to the actions and is swept up by the rhythm of operations. They are not always the ones creating plans, nor are they necessarily the best organizers. Their strength lies in their inner clarity, in knowing when they are straying, even before clear external signs appear. Meanwhile, the master of the how understands that inspiration needs to be translated into a system. If the asterisk why is the fire, the how is the hearth. Without a hearth, the fire will spread erratically, flare up, and then disappear. The master of the how creates processes, frameworks, tools, coordination methods, and quality standards. They transform the invisible into repeatable behaviors. They ensure that belief no longer depends on fleeting inspiration, but becomes a stable rhythm in every action. When these two roles coexist and respect each other, an organization can have both soul and form. But if one dominates, the balance will be lost. If there is only a guardian of the asterisk why without a master of the how asterisk, the belief will be noble but fragmented. It will be moving, but will not produce lasting results. If there is only a master of the how without a guardian of the why asterisk, the organization will become an efficient machine fast, neat, precise, but hollow. Efficiency cannot replace meaning. Meaning is also not enough to replace operation. Both need each other. If you carefully observe organizations with long-lasting influence, you will notice one thing: they don't hire people solely for skills. They hire people because they believe in the same thing. Skills can be learned. But the resonance of belief cannot be trained. When people join because they see themselves in the organization's core, they don't need to be pushed to exert effort. They push themselves. That voluntariness is stronger than any form of oversight. Many mistakenly believe that to maintain quality, one only needs to set clear rules and strict supervision. But rules do not create internal unity. They only create compliance. Common belief, however, creates a shared direction without needing to be stated. When everyone believes the same thing, they make similar decisions in thousands of unpredictable situations. That is something no process can cover. To transform belief into a living entity, every touchpoint within the organization must be evidence of the asterisk why. From how disagreements are resolved to how rewards are given, from the language used in small conversations to how a newcomer is welcomed, everything sends a signal. People receive signals not first with their ears, but with their feelings. Just one small detail that goes against the asterisk why asterisk and trust will fade. Sometimes no one says a word, but the atmosphere changes. And that is the most dangerous sign. No declaration can compensate for inconsistent behavior. Behavior is the truth, words are just words. Leaders must understand that what nurtures a movement isn't the moments on stage, but the moments no one sees the private, quiet decisions where choosing right is harder than choosing easy. When belief is translated into structure, it gains the ability to sustain itself. Newcomers don't have to memorize theories. They feel it through how the organization lives. They only take a short time to know what is right in this place and what does not belong here. They learn by absorption, and it is precisely when belief begins to be transmitted through the environment rather than through words that the movement reaches a new threshold. It no longer relies on a single person. It has become a flowing current. Once a belief has taken shape in action, the next challenge is how to preserve it over time. Nothing is as fragile as the starting point. As an organization grows, as success begins to be celebrated, as external eyes gaze upon it, the risk of quietly losing the original asterisk why emerges. It doesn't come with a major event. It comes from very small, repetitive choices, slowly and gradually leading astray. Preserving the asterisk why requires a form of inner vigilance, not vigilance in stillness, but within the very rush of operations. Every day, countless choices appear. Expand or not expand, change or stay the same, concede or hold firm. If based solely on short-term benefits, every decision will seem logical. But logic is not always synonymous with what is right. What is right is sometimes not easy to explain. It is felt by a very quiet sense within. In this journey, communication is not the act of speaking. Communication begins with listening. Listening not to reply, but to discern the common rhythm in what everyone is feeling. An inspiring organization doesn't speak first and then force others to follow. They listen to understand what resonates within themselves and others, then use words merely as a guiding rhythm. Words then no longer carry imposition. They are simply the expression of what already resides in the hearts of those facing them. But to truly listen, leaders must let go of the ego that needs to be proven. When the mind is preoccupied with asserting self-worth, it will hear nothing but its own echo. But when the mind opens, not rushing to reply, not clinging to preconceptions, the truth will reveal itself. And that truth is sometimes not easy to accept because it requires leaders to change roles from speaker to receiver. That is a crucial shift because only by receiving do they know how to speak to connect. Communication from the core is not about expressing the asterisk why with clichés. If a belief is spoken in the language of persuasion, it has already deviated from its original position. The why asterisk does not need persuasion. The why only needs to be articulated correctly. Correctly means authentically, meaning no additions, no elaborate embellishments, no attempts to create resonance, simply saying what needs to be said with corresponding inner depth. And then, at a certain point, an organization will grow to the extent that the original guardian of the why cannot be everywhere. This is a crucial moment. If the asterisk why depends on a single person, the organization will falter when that person steps out of the limelight. But if the asterisk why has become the common foundation for all decisions, it will continue to live as a natural rhythm. For that to happen, each member needs to be trusted to play their part in preserving the belief, not through slogans, but through intrinsic responsibility. That responsibility doesn't come from assigned tasks, but from internal voluntariness. When someone says, "I am here because this is important to me," they become a torchbearer, not a task doer, a leader. Consequently, they are no longer the sole center. Their role changes from fire starter to guardian of the space for the fire to burn. They create an environment where everyone can hear the voice of their inner asterisk why. They don't impose, they don't mold others into a pattern, they simply keep the flow clear and the rhythm undisturbed. This maintenance isn't loud. It doesn't come from grand campaigns or magnificent declarations. It comes from thousands of silent moments, from how a small disagreement is explained, from how a choice is made between two equally logical options, from asking the initial question again when faced with success. Success is always the test of the asterisk why. Failure can make us stronger, but success can make us fade. And when an organization maintains that clarity through every stage, belief is no longer a flickering flame. It becomes a stable source of light. People come and go, times change, markets shift, everything fluctuates, but that light remains. And in that light, people continue to recognize each other. Success always carries a paradox. When people yearn to achieve something great, they often believe that the moment they reach it will be the ultimate reward. But in reality, that very moment is the deepest test of their initial belief, because when success arrives, the external light becomes too dazzling, and the inner light sometimes dims. Leaders may start paying more attention to recognition than to essence. Organizations may begin talking about what they have rather than why they started. In the beginning, everything is usually very clear. An idea sparks from a deep need within. That idea drives people to act, attracting others who share the same feeling. Actions gradually take form, and form becomes an organization. When an organization operates in alignment with its original asterisk, why asterisk, connection comes naturally, trust flourishes, and success appears. But precisely at that moment, a silent shift can occur from "why are we doing this?" to "what are we doing?" This change is so subtle it's hard to notice. It doesn't come from a clear wrong decision, but from a series of small choices based on short-term benefits. Report numbers start to be prioritized. Growth targets become the guiding compass. The questions asked are no longer, "what aligns with our original asterisk why?" but "what can help results grow faster?" When metrics become the compass, the why fades during this phase. Those who once felt they belonged may start to feel they are merely working. The inner warmth fades, replaced by a rhythm of trying to keep up with expectations. The organization then easily resorts to methods that stimulate behavior rather than inspire. Promotions to retain customers, bonuses to retain employees, pressure to meet targets. These methods are effective in the short term, but they cannot create loyalty. Manipulation can create action, but it cannot create trust. There once was a coffee shop built on a simple why: to create a place where people could slow down, converse, and feel a sense of belonging. When that why was clear, every detail, from the aroma of roasted beans to how a cup was handed to a customer, carried the breath of care. But when success led to expansion, the need for growth became the priority, and attention shifted from experience to volume, from meticulous care to rapid expansion. The original atmosphere changed, not because anyone intentionally did something wrong, but because the focus had shifted. When the focus shifts, the soul shifts with it. The same thing happens when a person embodying the asterisk why withdraws or goes silent for a while. If that place lacks a mechanism to reiterate its starting point, the organization will naturally gravitate towards efficiency, because efficiency is easily measurable, while the asterisk why is not. At this point externally, things might still look good, there might even be growth and praise, but internally people will soon feel empty. Success doesn't destroy the asterisk why, it just makes us forget to ask it again. This isn't a collapse but a deviation, and deviation always begins very subtly. The most dangerous thing isn't when people are wrong, but when they think they are still right, while their guiding principle has already left them. But the truth is, the why doesn't disappear. It merely stands still, waiting to be recalled. And to recall it, leaders need the courage to look directly at the starting point and ask a seemingly simple but most difficult question: what did we start for? When the asterisk why is obscured, even slightly, the organization begins to split into two layers. The outer layer is what is visible: products, strategies, structures, results. The inner layer is the spiritual breath, what once was the common rhythm that bound people together. If these two layers still overlap, every action is natural and stable. But when the asterisk y is not kept clear, these two paths begin to diverge not in a single day, but little by little, until the gap becomes a chasm. This divergence is most evident in decision-making. Previously, when living in the pristine light of belief, people asked, what is true to what we pursue? Now, the question becomes, what can make us faster, stronger, bigger? Speed replaces meaning, and when speed stands at the center, anything that doesn't fit the pace is seen as an obstacle. At that point, thinking begins to change from building something of lasting value to chasing immediate effectiveness. When goals become the destination and no longer the consequence, the original spirit is detached from the organizational body. People inside feel they are pushing a machine, not nurturing something worthy of existence. There was a time when the railroad industry played a role in opening doors for people to distant lands. They didn't just transport goods, they expanded the world. But at some point, they forgot their initial question. They began to define themselves not by their asterisk y, but by their tools. They no longer saw themselves as people who helped others step beyond familiar boundaries. They saw themselves as people who built railway lines. And then, when another means of transportation appeared, one that also expanded the world, they didn't see it because they only saw something without railway lines, not that it served the same deep human need. This didn't just happen in transportation. It repeated in music, when people thought they were selling records instead of selling the experience of being touched at heart. It repeated in journalism, when people thought they were selling paper and ink instead of the truth. It repeated in technology, when people thought they were selling devices instead of the ability to empower individuals. Whenever the focus shifts from the asterisk y asterisk to the means, detachment occurs. The means swell, the y shrinks. That's when organizations have to rely on manipulation to keep things stable. Promotions, discounts, enticements, pressure, creating artificial scarcity, boosting short-term benefits not because they are bad, but because they have lost what once allowed them to stand firm without using such tools. When trust decreases, manipulation increases. That's the rule. During this period, leaders often believe they are merely adjusting operations, but in reality, they are trading something very hard to name, the feeling of belonging. Those who remain don't feel they are building something meaningful anymore. They feel they are merely trying to meet targets. And that's when the first cracks begin to appear, not at the level of action, but at the level of the heart. When an organization separates itself from its asterisk y asterisk, they have to work twice as hard to achieve the same results. What once flowed naturally now becomes heavy. What was once done with joy is now done with endurance. The larger the organization, the deeper the feeling of exhaustion. What was once a flowing current now becomes a drag. The sad thing is that in this state, people often think the solution is to speed up, but the faster they go, the further away they get from the asterisk y. Speed doesn't bring an organization back. Speed only leads them astray faster. To return, one must not stop all activity, but stop to look back, to ask the initial question again, to remember that before all this existed, there was something that made people willing to start from scratch. That thing is not in a spreadsheet, it's in the heart. To return, answers cannot be found externally. No new strategy, no optimized model, no powerful rallying cry can replace looking back at oneself. The why is not invented, the why is rediscovered. It's always there, lying beneath layers of habit, success, expectation, and fear. To rediscover it, one must dare to touch the place where things began. The why asterisk of an organization always originates from the people who built it, not from long-term target-setting plans, but from life experiences that touched them so strongly they couldn't turn away. Those experiences could be an injustice witnessed, a pain endured, a moment where the value of people was clearly stifled by unreasonable rules, or simply a humble desire to make one corner of the world a little more right. When two people started building a company in a cramped room, it wasn't because they had a vision to dominate the global market. They just wanted to create something they believed would bring freedom to users. They wanted to give individuals control over technology, rather than letting technology control individuals. Empowering people was the underground current connecting all the choices they made, even if no one called it by name at the time. And over time, that small thing became a huge wave. But the essence remained the same, always challenging the conventional norms that few dared to question, always making people feel seen, respected, and empowered to shape how they live in the technological world. That why asterisk didn't come from reason, but from a very specific feeling. The feeling of being overwhelmed by concentrated power and the desire to restore balance to individuals. Therefore, the asterisk why asterisk always bears the imprint of the heart, not of calculation. And remembering that, we understand that true competition is never about defeating others. True competition is about not losing oneself. When an organization starts comparing itself to competitors, it has already gone astray, because that means it has put others at the center. And when the center is changed, all subsequent actions will be pulled off course. Comparison not only takes away the freedom to decide, it also makes the organization lose its identity and positioning. At that point, every step becomes reactive instead of proactive, and a reactive organization always has to run faster to avoid being left behind. But an organization loyal to its why only needs to go right, not necessarily fast. The new competition is no longer about market share or market, it's about whether each day, a person, a group, an organization asks again, are we loyal to what we believe today? Victory is the ability to keep the source clean. Because if the source is clear, the flow will always be clear. If the source is murky, no matter how many paths are opened, the water will still be murky. An organization that knows how to preserve its asterisk why doesn't need to shout for anyone to hear. Their voice naturally has depth, not because they try, but because they are unwavering. And in a world where people are surrounded by noise, unwavering steadfastness is rare and luminous. That is also why loyalty cannot be bought. It can only be invited, not by words, but by how one lives. People can be persuaded to change behavior for a moment, but they are only willing to give their hearts where they feel consistency between what is said and what is done. And when that is true, the organization doesn't need to push. People will come, people will stay, people will become the transmitters not because they are asked, but because they feel that if they don't act, something important risks being lost. That is the moment when an asterisk why no longer belongs to the originator. It becomes the property of everyone who chooses to walk with it. There is something very quiet that emerges after completing this journey. We have always known what is right for us. It's just that sometimes the noise of life makes us think we have forgotten. This book does not offer a formula for success, does not teach how to win, does not point out tips to persuade others. It does only one thing. It takes us back to place our hand on our chest and listen to our own heartbeat. The important lesson is not in the three-circle model or in examples of great organizations. The lesson lies in the fact that every person has a silent asterisk why that has guided them for a very long time, even before there was language to name it. And it is that why that truly determines the direction of one's life, not goals, fame, or rewards. This sounds simple, but living by it is a challenge. Because living by one's why means daring to say no when the world unanimously says yes. It means daring to stand still when others are running. It means daring to maintain one's own rhythm, even when the crowd's rhythm is frantic. The book shows us a paradoxical but true thing. When we try to convince others to believe in us, they often leave. But when we live faithfully to what we believe, they will find their way to us. Because trust is not built on explanations. It is built on the consistency between what we say and what we do. And perhaps this is the appropriate moment for you to ask yourself a very gentle yet very profound question. If tomorrow all titles, achievements, and roles were erased, what within you would still remain? What within you cannot be taken away? What, if lost, would make you no longer yourself? If the answer is not clear, that's okay. The answer doesn't need to come quickly. It will gradually emerge as we slow down and observe what we are choosing and why. And if the answer has already come, even if just a flash, hold on to it. Don't try to articulate it beautifully. Just keep it real. That truth itself will be the fire for the future. And then, looking at the world, you will see more clearly. People don't need another successful person. They need people who know asterisk why they are living. They need people who are fully present in everything they do. They need people who don't chase applause but follow the call within their chest.